Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, I think that there is one thing that we can all agree on, and that is that life sucks. I mean, majority of our waking hours are spent doing things that we don't want to do. We have jobs, responsibility, and bills, but have you ever thought, why does life suck? Why do we have to live this way? What's preventing us from living our best lives? Well, the answer is money, or better yet, the lack of money. The reality is, we spend majority of our time doing things we don't want to do because we lack money. And why do we lack money? Well, the system's rigged, life ain't fair, but I only like to talk about things that we can control. And there's one detail that people often overlook, and I think it's the very thing that is ruining your life, and it's called consumerism. And consumerism is our reward for living this miserable existence. Consumerism is ruining your life. And in this video, I want to prove it. Because we're living our lives on autopilot, wasting our time to buy things that we don't need, with money we don't have, to impress people that we don't even like. And when you really think about it, it is so obvious how toxic this consumeristic life is. So here are 7 reasons consumerism is ruining your life. Reason number 1, consumerism sells a false narrative of happiness. Ladies and gentlemen, from the second we're born, at least in the United States, we're told this narrative on what a happy life is. And to put it in plain Jane terms, happiness is abundance. And through social media, in the 5,000 advertisements that we see in a day, we're sold this narrative on happiness, of having more rooms than you could possibly use, having more cars than you could possibly drive, having more stuff than you possibly need. And how do we achieve this level of happiness? Well, luckily, society gives us the equation. The more we consume, the happier we become. But there's a catch. We need to spend a lot of money. So for the average person, pursuing this narrative of happiness comes with sacrifices. The luxury car is only used to drive to work to pay for the car. The big house is vacant majority of the day to pay for the mortgage. The designer clothes are only worn in business meetings to pay off the credit cards. You know, pursuing this false narrative of happiness is a dangerous thing, and it can ruin your life because it makes you sell the most precious resource in the world, and that is your time. And it can make you give up the best years of your life in exchange for just a bunch of crap. Reason number 2, consumerism creates a life full of fear. You know, hopefully this ain't new news for you, ladies and gentlemen, but we only get one life. We get one shot to do whatever we want to do, and there ain't no do-overs. Once the curtain closes, it ain't coming back up, and we don't know when it's going to end. So do what you want to do, not what other people want you to do. You know, I think in many ways, consumerism forces us to live this life of fear, where we're constantly worried about what other people think of us, constantly worried about keeping up, and trapped by all of our debt in material possessions. And it can ruin your life because we don't take risks and we don't seek the more difficult path because we fear the consequences. And we live this life of fear with our heads down, trapped by our debt and material possessions. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one shot at this thing called life. One shot to do whatever you want to do. And once the clock stops, it ain't turning back on, and nobody knows when it's gonna stop. And consumerism ruins your life because it comes with all this debt and material trappings that forces you to live this life in fear and not reach your full potential. It makes you a slave to your debt and material possessions. Reason number 3, consumerism distorts our view of value. We prize our country, the United States of America, as the land of opportunity. And not to sound arrogant, but I have been all around the world, and this is true to an extent. I mean, the amount of economic opportunity that exists in this country is incredible. You know, life ain't always fair, and things aren't always perfect, but at the end of the day, at least you can find a job, at least you can find a means to make money, because in most places of the world, it ain't that easy. And having economic opportunity gives you money to bring value in your life. But because we live in this highly consumeristic society, our view of value is distorted. We view value as a life of abundance, a life where we're constantly consuming material possessions. But this value, this stuff, it steals away from the true value of economic opportunity, because the real value of economic opportunity is freedom, options, and flexibility. It's having a say in your life. It's having the ability to tell people no. That's the true value. And when you live this highly consumeristic life, thinking that value is through material possessions, it ends up ruining your life, because you don't get to actually enjoy the real true benefits, the real value of economic opportunity. You know, not everyone in the world has economic opportunity. So if you have it, use it to bring real value in your life. Reason number 4, consumerism is a life without satisfaction. Ladies and gentlemen, for most of our existence as a species, we were simple hunter-gatherers, seeking simple pleasures, telling stories of the hunt at campfire. And as long as our tummies were full and the fire was burning, we had what we needed. But for the past couple hundred years, we have been living in abundance. We've had everything we need. The days of the campfire telling stories about the hunt are long gone, and we have abundance. But as we start to accumulate more and more and more and more, we get further and further away from satisfaction. And we keep trying to find satisfaction through stuff by opening up Amazon and saying, give me more, give me more. But it is clear that as we have more abundance and as we consume more, we will never be satisfied. Consumerism is a machine, and the more you feed it, the hungrier it gets. And the more we consume, the further we get away from satisfaction. And that lack of satisfaction that comes from this highly consumeristic life ultimately ruins your life, because it's a life without satisfaction. To achieve real satisfaction is a life of less, an appreciation over what you already have. Reason number 5, consumerism focuses on self-care through material possessions. If you are not taking care of yourself, it's impossible to take care of other people. And you have to take care of yourself, but it's really hard nowadays because our view of self-care is distorted. And in our consumeristic society, we're flooded with videos and 5,000 advertisements a day of people trying to make you believe that you can buy self-care, that self-care comes from spending money, that you can buy it from the latest head scratcher or getting a bunch of new clothes. But this is not self-care. But I think that real self-care is something that is extremely internal. It's something that you can't buy. It's something that you can't consume. And the more you try to consume self-care, the further you get away from it. It's like trying to pursue happiness. You can't pursue happiness. It's a byproduct of something else. And consumerism ends up ruining your life because it distracts you from true self-care. It makes you think that you can consume and you can buy self-care. And you end up never taking care of yourself because you're constantly worried and you're constantly focused on consuming the next thing. Reason number 6, consumerism makes it impossible to have control. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to have control in my life, or better yet, I need control in my life. Because when I don't have it, I can't think straight and I'm overwhelmed at all the things that can go wrong. When you live a highly consumeristic life, it's impossible to have control over your life, no matter how much money you make or how organized you are, because your possessions end up owning you. And when you take the finances out of consumerism, you still have the cluttered mind that comes with abundance. Consumerism and abundance ruins your life because it's an extremely complex way to live. And as humans, our brains weren't wired to deal with this level of complexity. And your stuff ends up owning you. And you end up never having control over your life. I believe that the true way to have control over your life is through simplicity. Because when you have simplicity, it makes things easier to change and your mind isn't cluttered, so you can think and focus on what's truly important in your life and ultimately have more control over your life. Reason number 7, consumerism makes you live a bizarre norm. When I make videos, people might look at me and say, this El Agustin guy is a loser. And I may be a loser, but let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, I ain't the biggest loser. Take a second to look around and see how bizarre this norm that we're living in is. It's normal to have a garage full of crap. It's normal to have $5,000 in credit card debt. And it's normal to only get 2 weeks of vacation a year. This consumeristic norm of being trapped by debt and material possessions is just bizarre, and it ruins your life, and it's absurd to think that people are okay with it. No one is questioning it. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one shot at this thing called life to do whatever you want to do, and once the curtain closes, it ain't opening back up. So live life how you want to live it and live intentionally. And with that, muchas gracias, que tenga un buen día. Nos vemos, chico.